Well, thank you very much to Christina for that great introduction. Now, one of the messages that came out of last year's forum, for those that you were here, was that the public often think of our sport as a little bit too old-fashioned, or the betting offer is just too complicated. So do we go back to basics, or do we make big changes in order to ensure that racing and betting can survive, thrive, and remain relevant for the future? So I'm delighted to welcome our three guests on our first panel this afternoon. If I could start by speaking to Aymeric. Now, Aymeric, Cyril Linette joined as the head of the PMU in April 2018, and his first priority was to stem the decline in pool betting and increase turnover on horse racing. In order to do so, the PMU adopted a back-to-basics strategy, focusing on providing the best possible product and services to your existing customers. So can you tell us a bit more about how well this has worked for you so far, please?
Yes, indeed. The fact is, going back to basics or a big change, we have done both activities in PMU. It's true that 1 year ago, we were looking at what kind of strategy we could apply in PMU. Since 2012, we have increased the offer, like all the other operators in the world. Every year, we were adding more races, we were adding more betting occasion. And the fact is that the turnover was decreasing every year, and the costs were increasing. So we thought last year, what could we do to stop this? And after a lot of reflections with France Galopp and Le Trot, we ask also to all our punters, our customer, which is the first thing to do, to know exactly why you have a decline in the horse racing industry. So we decide to change completely our strategy and to come back to the basics, to come back to our customer, to the turfist, to the one who is betting on our races. And when we made a survey, we saw that the turnover was too high. The pool, as we were increasing the offer, the pools per bet and per race was decreasing. And it's a bit technical, but it's very important to understand that. The fact the pool per bet and per race was decreasing, you have less stable pools, you have less stable, less attractive dividends, less attractive winnings. So we decided with France Galopp and Le Trot to reduce sharply the offer. So we have decreased the offer by 20% in racing and by 20% in occasion of betting. So when we announced that, everybody say PMU is crazy. In 6 months they will increase the offer again. But the fact is that it works. After 9 months, we have launched this new strategy. Even if we have a 20% decrease in the offer, we are quite stabilized the turnover. We were at -5 in January, and in the last 3 months were positive in terms of increasing of the turnover with a decrease of the offer. What is more important also to underline is that the turnover per race has increased by 29%, which is more important for the customer. So we have bigger pool per bet, we have more stable pools. When you have more stable pools, that means that the dividends are not changing every time you have a bet. And the winnings are much higher. So we are very happy with the result today. We have to be cautious, of course, it's only 9 months. But we believe that back to the basics, back to the origin, is a good strategy to apply.
Very good, thank you. Winfried, the Hong Kong Jockey Club has obviously been at the center and a world leader in pool betting for many, many years. But the organization itself has gone through transformational change in the last decade or so, which again has been the result of a strategy where you put the customer at the heart of everything that you do, at the center of all your activity. So what would you say is the secret of your success?
I think it's, first of all, we had around 10 years ago, we had a significant challenge regarding our turnover came down from around 90 billion Hong Kong to 60 billion Hong Kong. And you could see a significant change in our whole customer environment. So one thing that was a short win, we looked at competitiveness of our program from product from pricing. So we changed the taxation, which enabled us to have the price elasticity you see in the market to address this. But the key is for us that we in a way, decided we are not only a gaming or racing organization, that we are in the entertainment leisure field. So when you define your customers, that you should not look only, from our perspective, on what is their gaming propensity, how they gamble, that if you want to be relevant for customers, especially those customers who have a gaming propensity, but are not in a way so entrenched into racing, how you create a value proposition for them that makes it relevant. So the key for our whole strategy is customer centricity, and the second part is customer centricity, and the third part is customer centricity. And we went in depth analysis, which we probably talk later a little bit about, to really understand our customers. The other issue is our racing product, because what we saw is a lot of our customers, they didn't want to be seen as gamblers. So you had to position racing as a world-class sport. We have, in a way, if you look at the quality of the sport we have, with 0.7% of the horse population, but having 8-9% of the best horses in the world, that was a branding anchor. And then, in a way, from there, if you look at design of our offerings, our product is handicap-based mainly, and with very competitive handicaps, average field sizes between 12 and 13, to create value proposition for customers. And then we understood, and that goes back to the customer centricity, that our customers, especially the younger, have a different information needs. So therefore, information is another key aspect, and to really understand how people digest information. For a younger customer, when you put him a newspaper in front of him, they are not interested. They want to see, in a way, a completely different interaction. Even if you look at how you present your form, they want to have a more graphic-based form. So when you understand your really customer segments, then you, in a way, design your offerings specifically for their needs that is relevant. One key issue, and this comes for racing too, that's integrity and welfare of horses of the sport. And I'm a very known advocate that if you don't have integrity in your sport, if you don't have, and this is why we are very strong when it comes to the medication of horse, that you have to be clear, our customers want to see a level playing field. They don't want to see that anybody has an insight because he has the best vet. So the integrity of the sport is something which is key in our strategy, and that we advocate. And that is, in a way, probably in the end, the success. And if you look at the turnover we have, that is definitely has grown from around 7 billion to 14.6 billion turnover in euros. And 12.4 is from local customers. So we have, in a way, increased our customer base in this respect. But the other growth engine in the last 2-3 years was commingling. Because we have a wonderful, in a way, product which shows, in a way, high liquidity, great information, and that is enabled us when we exported our product with commingling, where you can bet now globally into our pools. That has significantly increased our revenue side. And if you see now, we have practically 15% of the total turnover in Hong Kong comes via the commingling. So globalization, which I think is key for our sport, that you be a global sport, and at the other hand, that you have a global offering which attracts people, and especially with our deep liquidity we have in the pool, and our information, and the technology we have, we think we are perfectly positioned for this.
Both very interesting strategies, and we also have Hans here, who's got a very different set of circumstances in Sweden. Obviously, you're a regular contributor to the forum, and last year we discussed that major changes were imminent in the Swedish market, with betting and gaming both opening up to other licensed operators since January of this year. So how has ATG weathered the impact of this storm so far, and how have you had to adapt your approach to protect your market share?
Yes, ATG is a pari-mutuel horse betting company and has been since 1974. And as of 1st of January this year, we got a license market for part of the gambling sector. Included are betting on horses, off and online, on human sports, off and online, casino, poker, and bingo online. And in this new environment, we are doing quite well. We have increased our market share with around 4 percentage points. We are number one, mainly due to that betting on horses are really big in Sweden, bigger than all human sports consolidated. The main strategy for us is that we know we have more than 2 million customers in Sweden, and we know that that customer base stands for more than 50% of the turnover within human sport and online casino. So by adding these products, we try to make them to place their bets with us instead of competition. And the uniqueness we have is that our customers are very loyal. They might be old, but they are very, very, very loyal to. They visit our website each Saturday when we have V75, and it's an excellent opportunity for us to cross-sell to other products as well.
So 3 very different strategies there in 3 different markets, all trying to respond to the prevailing market conditions and obviously increased competition. But at the heart of each of those strategies remains the customer. So what are the common factors that help you shape the way that you develop and promote your offer? If I could ask Aymeric first.
Well, the most common factor is the customer. I agree totally with Winfried now. What said about Hong Kong Jockey Club strategy is also our strategy today. We have a 3-step strategies, but always around the customers. The first one is empathy. Is what we say is try to find what the customer needs in terms of products, in terms of services, and it's what we have done step by step for the last year. For example, on the Quintet Plus bet, we had a jackpot number, a random number between 1 and 3,000 to get the jackpot. We cancel this jackpot number because the punters didn't like it. Of course, it's random. It's not horse racing betting. It's not a skill game. So now on the Quintet Plus, if you have the 5 horses in order, then you can have the jackpot divided between the winners. The second step is about simplification for the customer. We think that the problem of the horse racing betting is that we have too much offer. In terms of bettings, we used to have around 11 to 12 different bets on each race. And we have reduced it to 7 to 8 bets when you have a race of 12 runners in average. For example, on one race, we used to have a couplet, exacta, quinella, a lot, and a trifecta, tiercé, trio. So now on a race, it's much more simple. You have only one occasion of bets with 2 horses or 3 horses. And the first step is what we call the image, and something I think we will talk about it later, about the image of racing. We have to improve our image among the punters, but also about the general public.
Thank you. And for the Hong Kong Jockey Club, Winfried, you obviously mentioned that you've got a very successful customer segmentation program. Everything, your approach is customer-centric. How often do you have to evaluate and adapt your methods in response to changing conditions in the market?
I think the most holistic exercise we took 10 years ago, where we really went into the detailed understanding, and we started with psychographics. Because I think, in a way, if you look at how customers' behavior is, and we identified, in a way, probably 3 mainstream psychographics. One is, in a way, the mainstream. They are very traditional, they don't change much, etc. And for these customers, you don't have to change a lot. Then we identified those people who are aspirers, who want to achieve something, who want to aspire to become a achiever, succeeder. And so we understood what are the behavior which drives their consumer behavior. And then, in a way, we had the so-called succeeders, achievers, that are really very successful people, extremely, in a way, result-orientated. And without going into the details, we practically have 9 different customer segments where we exactly know what their value proposition is. If you see, for example, racing and lifestyle seekers, for example, owners, they want to be seen. They want to have an environment where it's more than only betting. They want to have an environment where they bring their friends, where they entertain, and if the horse wins, where they get face. So then you have racing hobbyists, and that was a customer segment where we clearly could see we had the top segment, we had what we call money-driven regulars, who are very keen to have a bet, but they don't want to have a major F&B experience. They want to, in a way, have everything quick and fast. They don't want to be disturbed. But the middle class, those who want to aspire to become an owner or a member of the club, those who are, in a way, have a decent spendable income, they don't want to be public. They don't want to sit what we call the racing uncles. They want to be not mass. You have to create an environment for them where you meet the entertainment needs. So that was, in a way, we started then an investment program of around 700 million euro to change our venues to be attractive to them. Then we invested heavily in technology that we exactly looked what are the segments, what's the information patterns. So these, in a way, drives the customer segmentation, has driven practically how we have grown the business. And if you look at our growth in the customer segment, we have grown by around 35% our customer base. But the interesting thing is especially those people who are active, who really active, is around an increase of 30% over the years, despite a demographic which for racing is not, in a way, probably helping us demographic-wise. So we look at these segmentations every 3 to 5 years. So our biggest challenge will be the Generation Z, and that we definitely have not figured out. But technology, if you look at instant things you can do, how you have to be relevant on your app, on your mobile phone, that is key, because if you're not on the front page with your app of your mobile phone, you already have lost. So I think this is something which we drive and we want to understand even more.
Well, thank you. I mean, that leads me on to my next point. For Hasse, we had a panel discussion here last year with young people who work in the industry, and exactly as Winfried was saying, it's clear that there are changing needs and expectations from the next generation of customers, both in terms of the racing and the betting experience. So how can we ensure that racing revitalizes it and reinvents itself in order to remain relevant to this audience?
Yeah, I think the challenge is, for me, being responsible only for betting. It's quite simple for us to adopt our products to be attractive for a younger audience if we want to. But I think the challenge is that racing and the gambling activities are closely linked to each other, and the entire proposition needs to go hand in hand. And at least in Sweden, I think the roles, I'm so jealous when I hear the story of Hong Kong, because you're on top of everything. And that's not how it is in Sweden. We have the gambling company. We could do things quite easily, but you need to adopt the experience you give a track as well. And we have not developed at all there during the last 40 years, I would say. And that is needed in order to attract a younger audience.
Well, it's an interesting point you make, because PMU, you've had to work in close partnership with France Galopp in order to, and Le Tron, both to design a race program that optimizes betting turnover. So it must have been quite difficult for you to convince your stakeholders, particularly the horsemen, that less is more. So how did you manage to overcome any resistance to change?
Well, I mean, as I said in introduction, in 2018, it was a real crisis. PMU has lost 1.7 billion euros of turnover since 2012, so it's huge. And we have a new team with Cyril Linette and Bertrand Meeux, and they work hardly to convince Le Trot and France Galopp that we have to need this big modification, changement, and the main one was probably the calendar, the program of the racing, and it's still, we are working on it, but we see that we have to offer quality. This is the main, to respond to the needs of the customers. The quality is very important. What is quality in terms of racing? is to offer for us, for the punters, is at least to have an average number of runners of 11 to 12 horses per race, for example, is to have also all the data needed for each race, and to integrate a calendar where you can have time to bet between each race, at least 15 to 7 minutes. So we have worked closely on this calendar, and we are quite happy now with this result. Another example is, for example, the Quintet Plus bet, which is our flagship bet. We propose on Sunday. It's 20% of our business. We work carefully with Le Trot and France Gallo to have the best race for the Quintet Plus. In terms of betting, the best race is around 15 to 16 runners. It has to be a high category, high standard quality race. And when you have all these conditions, the turnover is there. So it's very important, the calendar, and the fact, Winfried is happy because it's integrated the Horse Racing Association and the betting operator. But I think we succeed now in France to work more closely with the Horse Racing Association to have the best calendar possible, which for the customer is very important.
And Winfried, you mentioned again, like the PMU, you're very focused on making sure that you're optimizing the racing product itself. But with the growth of sports betting and gaming around the world, how do you ensure that betting on racing itself continues to grow?
I think we have the luxury that, in a way, what my colleagues mentioned before, that we have a completely integrated program. So we have the product, the racing product itself, we have the wagering, we have then our membership, where the ownership comes from. What we could see, for example, that definitely for the younger generation, football, because it's a sport, and it's easy to bet. You don't have to study form, you don't have to get into details. You react a lot of times emotional. That's your team you support, you look at the odds. It's very easy decision making. If you bring a younger customer, you put a race book in front of him or a newspaper, they get lost. So what we did then is that we looked at those people who have the younger people, 25, 35 especially, who have a wagering propensity. And we changed the information pattern. And for example, we have an app where they can simulate the race. You don't have, in a way, to study form. You can learn, in a way, how you do this. And we have around every week, we have around every race meeting, around 50 to 100,000 young customers to use this. And what we see, then comes a migration. As soon as they understand the basic of the game, then they move into the more traditional information pattern, but with different race cards, with different information, which is much more graphical. And the other issue, which I think was a major turning point, was that we combined racing, especially in Happy Valley and Happy Wednesday, where racing is lifestyle entertainment, where you have, not after the races, where you have integrated in the racing offering between races, live entertainment, live music, etc. It's fun to go to the races. So we have been able to rebrand the whole racing, not as a sport for old uncles. Racing is trendy, it's fun. And that is from the brand what I think is extremely important, that you understand how the young customers think and that they don't want to be seen as hardcore gamblers.
And for ATG, obviously, the opening of the market has enabled you to cross-sell the racing product to those betting on sports and gaming. But has there been any cannibalization of your existing business? What do you see as the future opportunities or threats for betting on racing in particular?
Yeah, there have been cannibalization. We have lost like 1% point of our horse turnover, but for each krona we have lost, we have gained another 20 on sports and casino. So that's not the thing making me having problems sleeping during night. For now, it could change, but it's good business. But what I think is crucial when I listen to Hong Kong is that what they have succeeded, which we have not succeeded with in Sweden, is to have different offers to different target groups. We have pretty much a grey offer to everyone in the market. To take two examples, one is the very expensive dinner where you need to paint with a certain color in order to please the customers, while you have the hamburger bar with a beer, and you need to paint with another color and have different prices for sure. But what we have is something in the middle, not pleasing anyone. I'm very impressed when I go to like Melbourne Cup, or I haven't been to Hong Kong, but I could imagine it's the same story, that you have different areas at the track with clearly different target groups. And that's something that we need to do, because the experience we give is not only a gambling experience, it's everything has to be involved.
And obviously, technology is a huge part of that. So there have been massive advances in the last decade since we started out with the Racing and Betting Forum, which obviously helps us to engage with the customers and promote our product. And obviously the advent of the World Pool initiative between Hong Kong Jockey Club and Ascot this year felt like a major breakthrough. And there'll also be common pool between Hong Kong and the PMU on the Arc on Sunday. So do you think this will act as a springboard now to international commingling, including harmonization of rules and bet types, and really open up pool betting to a wider audience? If I could ask each of you in turn your thoughts on that, please, to conclude.
Okay, but yeah, commingling for us is very important. As Winfried said, is a big turnover, a big part of the turnover of Hong Kong Jockey Club today. For us, it's 12%, more than 12% of our turnover today. We have 30 commingling partnerships in 30 countries, and we are very happy to welcome Hong Kong Jockey Club for the first time in Common Pool on the Arc next Sunday. So it's Common Pool is important. If we come back to the strategy of the PMU at the beginning, to have the pools bigger, to have a more attractive dividends. So it's something we are going to push. But then you have also a lot of issues of harmonization, legal issues. You have also a lot of constraints now from the states. We're talking about anti-money laundering issues, anti-corruption laws. So it's more and more difficult to do it, but we succeed to do it now, and I believe really that bilateral agreements in Common Pool are really successful results, and to try to have a big Common Pool with a lot of operators. At the moment, I think bilateral agreements as a first step to do before having a big pool worldwide.
And Winfried, from your perspective, obviously you've had a successful initiative with Ascot this year.
Definitely, I think we are convinced that the world is more global, and the most prominent, best racing products will dominate. And that is how you can promote them and connect them globally. With Ascot, we had the first world pool, and if you look at the turnover increase, it was for us around 37%. Here in Great Britain, for Ascot, it was, even from a total perspective, nearly 100%. That shows that it's not only fixed odds, there is a market for pool bets. And then we have to think in a way how we harmonize. But I think I'd be a little bit guarded if it comes to harmonizing of bet types. Customers in different locations have a different preference regarding bets. And if you try to change them, for me, I advocate, and that's a cooperation we had, for example, with Longitude, where you can try to create pools where you merge different bet types. You have, for example, an exacta is successful in one country, but it may be not as interesting in your country. But when you, in a way, then with a merged pool can create a common pool where you even merge different bet types, that I think gives you the best. Because as soon as you start to try to change bet types, promote your bet types in a country where the customer is not familiar with, you struggle, and it takes you much more time. So I'm a firm believer in globalization, a firm believer in international cooperation. We will have to do something regarding technology, because if you look at technology when it comes to even commingling protocols, as soon as it comes to exotic bets, it comes to more a little bit complicated bet types, bet by bet processing, which I think is a must from an integrity point. This is why we should, as an industry, work closer together and try in a way to really form a group who's progressive in advancing the technology and the philosophy of global betting.
And thank you. And to finish off then, Hasse, we've often talked about a global super bet. Do you think that's a realistic prospect?
Yeah, I think we are in a great need of globalization and global bet. The racing industry are fighting against human sports, which have taken market share all over the world over the last years. We are fighting lottery and number games, who have taken the position of the big wins. And we all know the answer, and that is a global bet. And then you have a lot of political obstacles. You have differences in how you place bets. But that is to be solved.
Well, thank you very much to all three of you for joining us today. If I could invite Christina back to the stage.
Of you. Do you have any questions? I actually have my web app platform right now in my hands. I don't see any questions. Any questions from the floor? No questions. We have some journalists. You probably have any questions for your articles.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy, yeah. That's the starting. That's also one of the reasons. Well, the other solution is because you have been so clear and so direct that we have all the answers already. Probably that case. No questions? Well, thank you very much. Thank you.